Are things bad? Yeah, they're bad. Relations between men and women at this time on a very high social level are unfortunately in a bit of a moment of distress. In the Western world, essentially where capitalism is the most advanced, people are giving up on ever getting married. Women are just saying, to hell with it, and choosing not to ever find a partner. And men are doing the same thing, just deciding that they've had enough of the game, that they're not winning, and them just deciding to hang it up. They don't want to be a part of it anymore. And that's an unfortunate reality that we face today. But I had some thoughts I wanted to go over. I think it's pretty clear that what's going on here is capitalist alienation. In that human beings become disconnected from each other as their relations between each other become more of a commodity relation rather than a social relation. To put it as briefly as possible. And I think that's a far more rational explanation than woke mobs are destroying the family and everybody in the left, when they're mostly just referring to liberals, are trying to destroy the family and bring it down and make sure that nobody ever gets married ever again. This kind of nonsensical conspiratorial thinking is not new. In fact, this was quite prevalent during the Cold War, in which many authorities in the United States said that feminism was a Soviet conspiracy to try to slow down the population growth of America. Except for the part where the Soviet Union was further along a feminist line than the United States has ever been. So the Soviet population should have been slower than the American population, or slowing down first and then shrinking. But, we're trying to apply logic to something that is just a nonsensical claim. Hey, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there are people out there who believe in the total abolishment of the nuclear family. There are writings by, Marx and Engels that saying how the family should be abolished and whatnot. And to a large degree, I think that's actually a mistake. You see, the thing I think they're not understanding is that if you want to be in a nuclear family, if you want to choose to do that, you should be able to. But that's the thing. It should be a free and fair choice that you have made for yourself, and not one that you have been coerced into. The problem is that this idealized 1950s, which a lot of people are looking back to as a way to solve the problem between the sexes right now, is that it kind of was forced. You know how, you didn't really get a job? You just went off to be somebody's wife, and then it didn't work, so, you had no way of actually taking care of yourself? Provide for yourself. You essentially couldn't do that. You had to get married in order to be able to do that. Essentially being reliant on somebody else. Now, that's very clearly wrong. The part I don't get is, some kind of equal partnership is totally possible, right? You really can just act as equals, with nobody having to being economically dependent on another. And in fact, both people can still work, monetarily contribute to the family, and still be a nuclear family. I think there's too much rush to get rid of something that perhaps many of those who advocate its abolishment don't. Frankly, sometimes I think they just don't understand that a lot of the coupling that has taken place between men and women over the past, what is it, human history goes back now about 2 million years? I think they found some fossils 2 million years old, something like that. that maybe to some degree it was consensual and people wanted to do it. And I'll bet some of it wasn't. But the point is, some people wanted to do it. And there are people today who still want to do it. And if they want to live that, quote, traditional lifestyle, they should be free to do that if they want to, in that nobody is coerced into doing so. Give you a good example of what I mean. I think the reason for the hijab, the niqab, burqa, whatever, is complete nonsense. It's completely ridiculous. But I believe that if a Muslim woman does want to wear it freely as her own choice, have at it. I don't believe in forcing it to be gotten rid of any more than forcing it to be done. It should be a free and fair choice. If that's something you want to do, go ahead. If it makes you feel better, go ahead and do it. The point here is about being forced. And that you should be free to be in these kinds of unions if you want to. If you want to be in a homosexual union, be in one. If you want to be in a polyamorous union, which, by the way, I think is completely and utterly stupid. It's complete nonsense and it can never end well. But people are free and fair consenting adults. And if they want to do that, they should be free to do so. But it's very obvious when we look at society in general and we see how we have these stupid internet programs where it's a bunch of men attacking a bunch of women, a bunch of women attacking a bunch of men, and this woman says, I want a traditional guy that will do ... take care of me, blah, 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 the money and all that. And he turns around, are you a traditional woman? Are you a virgin? Are you this and that? And she says, well, no, but I think the definition of traditional blah, blah, blah. By the same token, you get the guys turn around and say the same thing. These guys, they want a traditional woman who's going to shut up and do whatever they say. Love, honor, and obey. Emphasis on the obey part. And then end up not finding anyone. And then treating women like shit. And then ended up finding no one. And then they turn around and there are women out there who don't care anything about a man's character whatsoever and only care about how much money he makes. Of course there's women out there like that. There's a hell of a lot of them. And what is it they usually go by? They call it the rule of 6. 6 figures, 6 feet, 6 inches. Just saying. That's what they're saying. And these have all been poisoned as a result of capitalism. Oh, I just want somebody that will be there to just go clean house and take care while I'm working. That's pretty much a capitalist relation. I just want a man that will just have money and just take care of me, and then the man's worth is tied inherently to how much money he has. If you don't even see that as a symptom of capitalism, there's really no helping you. It's messed up. The whole system is messed up. Relations between men and women are getting worse. They're breaking down. They're becoming more openly hostile than ever before. Rates of marriage are dropping. Divorce rates are skyrocketing. The number of people deciding that they don't want to be a part of any kind of union anymore is increasing. And that is mostly due to capitalism. For a very long time, it was out of necessity that we got together. And then it became something even worse out of capitalism. You know, eventually the day came where one person's income can't pay for a whole family. If you can find that, I'll give you an example. My grandfather had 7 kids. His wife stayed at home. My grandmother. The guy worked and fed 7 kids and paid a mortgage on a house. I would love, and blue-collar job working for a hydro company, I would love to see that now. Because I can guarantee you that ain't happening. It's at the point now where everything is so bloody expensive, productivity has gone up, wages stagnant, blah, blah, blah. We all know that. The fact is, we are going to have to get past this stupid blaming each other bullshit. Men are inherently evil. Women are all gold diggers. We're going to have to move past that. You know why? Because there's some truth in both of them. Misogyny certainly does exist. There's no doubting that whatsoever. And there are gold diggers. A kind of misandry. It's certainly there. The problem is we're letting all of these people, who are the worst examples of these things, go on podcasts and talk as if they represent the entire population. When really the average regular person really is more moderate. And that really does go along generational lines. It's not the same thing for me as it was for my parents. And it's not the same thing for you that it was for me. These number of young men who are continuing to be virgins well into their 20s, that is a symptom of something happening. Not necessarily good or bad, but the change itself is significant in that it is demonstrating that something is changing. The inability to have relationships is an indication that something is wrong. That everything is breaking down, and everybody's trying to make this stupid argument, it's the lack of Jesus in schools. Because you know how much Jesus there was in school in the Soviet Union. And Cuba, and Vietnam, and China, and every other socialist country who had very high marriage rates and didn't have religion in their education system at all. And these societies were mostly secular anyway. So that's clearly not the case. It's not a lack of religion. It's not a lack of Jesus in school. There's something else. And that something else is alienation. Capitalist alienation specifically. And that runs right through everything. Everything in our society. Every single aspect of everything we think, breathe, eat, or sleep is affected by it. And it's becoming poisonous. Like all the lead and asbestos and microplastics in our body. The not being able to sleep, stressed out, worried about our jobs. And our food being essentially poisonous. We have to go to organics or other stuff like that that's granola hippy dippy in order to find something that just doesn't kill you. So as much as we want to just keep lamenting this as a process, or just blaming younger people for not doing the thing, millennials aren't getting married, so now the marriage industry is suffering, maybe it's about time we start looking at society and looking at how it functions and how that may play into a relation to relations between people. Already we can make a very easy one. That person that's incredibly rude to service staff? The one that goes into like a convenience store and then treats the clerk like complete crap? Because they're not even seeing a person anymore. They're not even seeing a relation between two people. They're seeing a commodity relation. This is kind of like Marxism 102. But it's there. And this can happen on a macro level as well. So simply reverting to some kind of appeal to religion or some kind of traditional values, which often end up being wrapped up in a swastika flag for some reason, or a return to tradition or some kind of nonsense, that's not the answer. I am not going to sit here and believe that if we just go back to the 1950s and all, just polish off our Norman Rockwell paintings, everything's going to be fine, because there were a lot of things wrong with the 1950s in terms of the nuclear family. That's not the solution. We're going to find the solution by going forward, by unraveling contradiction, not by creating more of them or simply trying to throw us back into some kind of Stone Age. The problem is here, and the problem is here to stay. It's not going to go away. It's not a statistical aberration, because we've seen it get worse. It started in Gen X, got worse in millennials, and Gen Z, it's even worse for them. This is clearly a progressing problem. One that is, hell, you can even say it was happening with the boomers too. So it is getting worse. And this is a problem that needs to be faced, and it needs to be confronted by a scientific approach. Not by simply saying, reject modernity, return to tradition, or simply say, let's go the super ultra liberal ultra left of just abolishing all families in general, because that's not going to work either. I think it's about time we took a hard look at why it is we get together to begin with, and what it is we want to accomplish by doing so. Because on a most basic, simple level, human beings get together and have children and work together to raise those children, the reproduction of life, or a reproduction of the worker if you're so inclined. And that kind of monogamy actually is normal, because monogamy does occur in nature. I'm not saying you have to be monogamous. I'm saying if you want to, go ahead. In fact, I would personally recommend it. As a child of a single-parent family, I can tell you, things would have been a lot easier if there were two parents to carry a workload. And don't necessarily have to be one man, one woman, two men, two women, whatever. Many hands make light work. Two parents doing the job of raising children is a hell of a lot easier than just one doing it by themselves. That should be common sense. But we're spiraling towards disaster. And we call it the death of Western civilization. No, we're looking at the death of civilization in general, if we don't get our act together, because this is just going to spread. It's going to get worse. As commodity relations pick up in other countries, particularly the Middle East, Southeast Asia, the same thing is going to start happening. And who knows? I don't know offhand, but I would assume to some degree may actually already be happening now. It's not a white people problem. It's not a Western people problem. It's a capitalism problem. We just happen to be the best example of that, because we have most commodified our existence and commodified how we interact with each other. In other words, the most developed along the lines of capitalist development. Something that Marx rightly predicted was going to get worse. Now, I think he did have some nonsense ideas about abolishing the family and stuff like that. I think that it's too much ingrained in our very nature, in our human nature, which some of it, by the way, is written in stone. The I can only function off of greed certainly is not. But there are certain aspects of human nature that are written in stone that we're not going to be able to get around unless we start genetically engineering ourselves. And that is another video for another day, and that is another mess to be dealt with at another time. And a whole other nightmare waiting to unfold. But as it is right now, if we don't fix this, populations are going to keep shrinking. Shrinking because we don't want to be with each other. Because we're all starting to hate each other. I mean, America being the best example, most developed along the line of capitalism, can't stop shooting each other on a daily basis. It's just to cite an example of the thing that can go wrong, and is going wrong, and can spread to other countries as well. That alienation is getting worse. And we as a species, human beings, we will not survive if we don't deal with this problem. And that is what we are not doing. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.